have others, mentors, teachers recognize them, and then develop them. There's a lot of talk right now about this idea of the ego. Okay, now most people really, if you say, what is the ego? Most people can't really describe what it is. And I have my own idea of what the ego is, and what I think the ego is, or one of the definitions that I think the ego is we humans, we have this complex brain that allows us to recursively reflect at a higher and higher meta level. So what that means is I can not only just be here standing here talking, but I can also notice that I'm standing here talking, and I can look at how I'm standing, and I can listen to the tone of my voice while I'm doing it. Well, after this is over, I can reflect on how I was reflecting on listening to myself talk, and I can think about watching myself, and I can improve how I'm watching myself. And then after that, I can reflect on how I was reflecting on myself, right? And I can keep going to a higher, more meta level. I can also think in bigger pictures. I can think about myself. I can think about this group right here. There are 6, there are 10 maybe of us in this room right now, and the difference that we can go make. I can think about this company. I can think about this city, right? So this is a very powerful ability that I have. And I think that this is created, it's a function of our circuitry in our heads. A guy named Piaget, who's one of the original developmentalists, he studied childhood development. And what he found is that children, as they're developing, they have brain mechanisms that seem to be coming online as they're growing, because you notice a child is born this big and then it grows. Well, inside there are brain mechanisms that are growing too. We're born the most premature, basically, of any mammal, because we get the huge brain case out through the birth canal. So, you know, the brain is born very premature, so a lot of the brain's development is actually done after we're born. So it's done interacting with the environment. So it seems that we have circuitry that allows us to go another level meta, another level higher. And as these circuits come online, we have different capabilities and different powers. And it seems to me that most people develop what you might think of as probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 or 5 levels of meta that are built on these different brain circuits that come online. And up there in that kind of 3rd, 4th, 5th level of meta, of abstraction, is where we start building a self-image, who we think we are. Okay? And we identify with things like our name, and our job, and how we look, and what our values are, and the types of people that we hang out with, and our beliefs, and that all kind of comes together into this image of ourselves that we might call an ego. Okay? It's a virtual us that lives inside of this brain. And it's trippy to think about. I mean, you can just kind of geek out on this one for a long time. And you notice that it almost has a life of its own. In a way, it's kind of separate from the body. Right? Well, this ego now, in a lot of ways, in self-help and modern kind of spiritual conversation, is being considered the enemy. Okay, so we say things like, "Oh, that's just your ego," or "Oh, you know, my ego couldn't take it," or "He's being egotistical," right? Or "She has a big ego." And I think that's a little bit of a tragedy, because the ego itself is what allows us to be effective in the world, to have a self-image, to build a powerful self-image, to function and interact with other people. So yes, part of our ego can be unhealthy, and yes, part of our ego can become arrogant, or what you might call egocentric or selfish. But that's just a little sickness that it can get, or a little ailment. It isn't really the function of the ego. So I think it's important to recognize that you have an ego, we all have an ego, and that if we want to go beyond it, it's not about getting rid of it or it becoming something bad. It's actually about building a very healthy, strong ego, a strong sense of self, and then once we have, then going beyond it and seeing that there's a bigger picture, seeing that there are more of us, and seeing that this ego can be in service of something greater. But you can't transcend something that you haven't built already. So how do you build a healthy ego? How do you build a healthy sense of self, a healthy image of self? Well, one thing that's interesting is that we can't see ourselves as well as others can see us. It's one of the great tricks of life, is that you can't just look in a mirror and then do your thing and go, okay, I can see myself. because you're with yourself all the time. It's kind of like if you put on sunglasses, you wear them all day and they have a slight tint. Your eyes adjust and you forget that there's a tint there because you've adjusted to it. Well, the ego and the self-image, this is all the same way. You adjust to it and you don't even realize it. You just think that's the way that it is. So it's critically important if you want to build your talents into strengths, you want to build a strong, healthy ego, to get around other people who are highly developed, ideally mastermind or mentor types, who can give you loving, honest, critical feedback on an ongoing basis. Okay? And to ask for this from other people. It's not natural, I think, for humans to say to other people, hey, here's where I'm trying to go in life. Here are the things that I'm doing. Can you give me some feedback? What do you think? What do you think my strength is? What do you think my weakness is? What do you see me as good at? What do you not see me as good at? And to continually get that feedback, that reflection from others. I think that doing that can help us build a strong, healthy ego. Another thing that can help us is building strong self-esteem. Dr. Nathaniel Branden is kind of known as the grandfather of modern self-esteem. He's a real pioneer in this area. And he defines self-esteem as two things. One, the feeling that you can cope with anything that life throws at you. And number two, the feeling of deserving of happiness. Okay? And I've updated this a little bit with my own kind of perspective. You can get into some higher levels. Not only just the feeling that you can cope with what life throws at you, but that you can succeed with whatever life throws at you. And even further, that you could thrive. That no matter what comes your way, that you have the wherewithal, you have the skills, the resourcefulness to thrive in any environment. Right? That's a highly developed sense of self-esteem. But that doesn't get you all the way there, because along with it, you need the feeling that you deserve happiness. Okay? That you are deserving of being happy just because you deserve to be happy and for no other reason. Now, a lot of us, and I have some of this myself, we have this feeling like, well, I shouldn't be too happy because there are people that are in need, or I shouldn't enjoy my life too much because there's this other person that is in need over here. I shouldn't make myself successful because there are all these other people that are unsuccessful. And underneath it is this feeling that I don't really deserve to be happy just because I deserve to be happy. Nathaniel Branden, I sat down with him, I don't know, it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, and I did a few therapy sessions with him. And I don't know, within 10 or 15 minutes I was talking to him about my business, and I'm making these sacrifices, and I'm working really hard, and I'm doing all this stuff, and he kind of said, well, what about you? Like, what are you doing to make yourself happy? And why are you so concerned with everyone else and not with your own happiness? And I said, well, I do consider myself to be a pretty happy person. I like to do things that are happy. My main focus is on everything else. He really brought my attention back to, no, do what makes you happy, and it's okay to do it, and there isn't anything wrong with it. And any tape you have or any kind of script that you've got going in your mind that causes you to feel bad when you're doing something to make yourself happy, or feel bad when you want to do something to make yourself happy, or there's any guilt, or like someone else is suffering so I shouldn't be happy, that's obsolete, that's holding you back, and it's holding me back from being successful for all of us. So important to build self-esteem and to be around other successful people. So we really need, all of us need you to recognize your gifts, recognize your unique gifts, and develop them into talents, and develop a healthy sense of self, a healthy ego, so that then you can go beyond it. And you know what? As far as I'm concerned, I think I really want to encourage you to be very selfish in this way, not in an egocentric, like overly, it's all about me, but it's okay to put your own mask on first before you put on the mask of others, and to feel great about doing this with no guilt, because this is what's going to give you the foundation down the road to be able to do a lot more. The second thing that we need, okay, all of us need, is we need you to develop excellence and success and personal success so that you can really get a taste of your potential. Okay? So we need you to not only just recognize your gift and kind of develop them into a strength, but go further and turn them into excellence, world class, and become successful. Become successful in business, become successful in the economic world, so that you get a taste of the potential that you really have. Self-esteem, the feeling that you can cope with whatever life throws at you and that you deserve happiness, a lot of that comes when you kick ass in the world, when you do something and it works, and then you do another thing and it works. Right? Sun Tzu says opportunities multiply as they are seized. And you see that effect of I'm getting more opportunity and I'm more successful, and as I develop myself, like I have this power that others have. It's like almost you develop your superhero power. Now that could lead to hubris for most people, but it actually doesn't. Okay, most people are afraid that. Let me say that again. Most people are afraid that could lead to hubris or arrogance, but for most people it actually doesn't. For most human beings, when they develop their talent into a real strength and they systematically become excellent and create value in the world, they don't become arrogant, they don't become overly full of themselves, they actually become benevolent. Okay? So if you have any tapes running in your head that say, oh, I want to be humble and I don't want to be too successful because I don't want to make anyone feel bad, or if I'm successful people aren't going to like me, use the Bob Newhart stop it therapy. Stop it. And realize that you deserve success, and when you create success, when you really develop your excellence and you turn that into economic success for yourself, the taste of your potential that you're going to get, that's what's going to allow you to go on and do great things later in the world. That's what's going to give you that feeling that you can make huge things happen. What a lot of folks try to do is they try to do like what you might call the philanthropy bypass. Okay? They try to just skip this whole, success game, and they go right on to philanthropy. And they're, the next thing you see is them hugging a tree in the forest, while the authorities are dragging them off, and they're going, no, these trees are good. And you have to like cry with them for the forest being destroyed, but at the same time you have to be like, why didn't you take some time to learn how the whole system works, you smart person, and go to work on it like at the root level, so to speak, rather than just standing in front and just waving your arms. Right? So when you develop your talent into strength, then into excellence, then you create value in this economic world that we have. You learn so many other lessons. You learn political lessons about how to interact with other people, how to work as a group. You learn how organizations work. You learn how to influence large groups of people. You learn about things at the policy level. You just become much more powerful to do good things later on. So self-success, right? Making yourself individually successful, this is where group success comes from. It's kind of the fundamental building block of group success. And Peter Drucker, who's the great management guru who wrote 20 or 30 great management books and business books, he wrote one called The Effective Executive. And in there, he points out this idea. I don't know if he was the first one, but it's the first place that I know of it in business. And he says, strengthen your strength. Strengthen your strength. So take what you're strong at and make that even more powerful. What a lot of us do is we get insecure about our weaknesses. Okay, so we're like, well,